天哪，川普又输了。But this time it ain't the presidential election, it's the goddamn Nobel Peace Prize. Now real talk, 我不太确定他应该要得到，但是我很确定有一位不应该得的，就是奥巴马。
No, you're right.
Now, a lot of you may not know that under Obama's presidency, Taiwan faced perhaps its most dangerous period. And this guy continues to influence America even now. And ironically enough, he somehow won the Nobel Peace Prize.
No, this nigga gay as hell.
And worst of all, American TV shows, games, and movies have become infected by the DEI woke bullshit mind virus, making them completely unplayable and unwatchable even now. And it's all because of this guy. So, 准备在爆米花 because for America, even now, 真的是代志大条。So, despite sorting out the Israeli-Gaza hostage crisis and solving a few conflicts to boot, the Orange Man did not receive the Nobel Peace Prize.
The person who actually got the Nobel Prize called me and said, I'm accepting this in honor of you because you really deserved it. That a very nice thing to do. I didn't say then give it to me though. I think she might have. She was very nice. And I've been helping her along the way. They need a lot of help in Venezuela. It's a basic disaster. So, and you could also say it was given out for 24, and I was running for office in 24. All of the transactions that we did in terms of closing. But there are those that say we did so much that they should have done it, but I'm happy because I saved millions of lives.
Weird. Now, although I do find the Orange Man a huge pain in the ass, especially when it comes to his random comments about Taiwan's chip industry and the bullshit tariff adjustments, he did legit try to resolve conflicts and bring real peace. Even if it was temporary, at least the orange nigga tried. And that got me to wondering, what exactly are the Nobel Committee standards?
U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly said he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize and he'd like to have it. He even said that it would be an insult to the United States if he doesn't get it. What does as chairman of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, think of this, and how has this campaign-like activity by the president and his supporters, domestically and internationally, affected the deliberations and the thinking in the committee?
In the long history of the Nobel Peace Prize, I think this committee have seen any type of campaign, media attention. We receive thousands and thousands of letters every year of people wanting to say what for them leads to peace. This committee sits in a room filled with the portraits of all laureates, and that room is filled with both courage and integrity. So we base only our decision on the work and the will of Alfred Nobel.
Winners need courage and integrity. Well, after being pew-pewed in the ear with blood streaming down his face, the Orange Men stood up in front of a crowd of thousands and fist pumped shouting, "Fight, fight, fight." Now to me, that is courageous as fuck. But when it comes to the case of integrity, my man falls really short.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
However, by the Nobel standards, I can be 100% certain that there's one person who absolutely does not qualify for this award.
The United States will take concrete steps towards a world without nuclear weapons. To put an end to Cold War thinking, we will reduce the role of nuclear weapons in our national security strategy and urge others to do the same. Make no mistake, as long as these weapons exist, the United States will maintain a safe, secure, and effective arsenal to deter any adversary and guarantee that defense to our allies, including the Czech Republic. But we will begin the work of reducing our arsenal, to reduce our warheads and stockpiles. We will negotiate a new strategic arms reduction treaty with the Russians this year.
So just 3 months after taking office as the US president, Obama gave this speech in Prague, basically talking about his future plans, which included reducing nuclear weapons and making various political promises. You know, what any run-of-the-mill politician would do. But at this point, he hadn't really achieved anything yet. And then 3 months later, this happened.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided that the Nobel Peace Prize for 2009 is to be awarded to President Barack Obama for his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples. The committee has attached special importance to Obama's vision of and work for a world without nuclear weapons.
What kind of shit is that?
So, because of one speech full of hope and change, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to this guy, which left a lot of people full of bahir and wunha, and resulted in the Nobel Peace Prize Committee having to come out and do some explaining.
Well, I do hope that history will prove that we were right, that it was now we had the opportunity to support what Barack Obama wants to achieve, namely to strengthen international cooperation, multilateral organizations, and international diplomacy.
As the president has said himself, this is an award for which he feels he must be challenged to continue to do more. It is not a reward for what has been achieved, but for the potential of what may be achieved, and I think he welcomes it in that spirit.
Shit, the Nobel Peace Prize Committee was like a young, naive 21-year-old girl eating a handful of PUA lies. A young, tall, handsome, red-boned nigga with a deep voice comes out and says, "Baby, you must have hope. I will love you forever, and that will never change." And they ate that shit up like a handful of tiquacho. Or maybe utokal.
Stupid.
But more importantly than that, the deadline for the 2009 Nobel Peace Prize nominations was February 1st, while Obama was officially sworn in as US President on January 20th, the same year. That means that Obama was nominated just 11 days after becoming president, but his speech in Prague that won him the prize happened 3 months after that nomination. So, did the US government invent a time machine to know exactly when Obama's speech would be made and get the nomination ready in advance?
Not really. Maybe. It's classified.
And then in less than 500 days, this political boy Zidane, who promised hope and change and open dialogue between all the hostile nations to promote peace, took his time machine and turned around and did this.
Today, I authorize the Armed Forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya in support of an international effort to protect Libyan civilians. That action has now begun. In this effort, the United States is acting with a broad coalition that is committed to enforcing United Nations Security Council Resolution 1973, which calls for the protection of the Libyan people. That coalition met in Paris today to send a unified message, and it brings together many of our European and Arab partners. This is not an outcome that the United States or any of our partners sought. Even yesterday, the international community offered Muammar Gaddafi the opportunity to pursue an immediate ceasefire, one that stopped the violence against civilians and the advances of Gaddafi's forces. But despite the hollow words of his government, he has ignored that opportunity.
Obama gave that Nobel Peace Prize one big pimp slap in the face. Hey, 等一下，我好像错了，不是 one slap, it was 7 slaps. From Afghanistan to Iraq to Libya to Syria to Yemen to Pakistan and Somalia. This fool who promised to bring American soldiers home before his election, after receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, deployed 100,000 troops to Afghanistan, becoming the president who deployed the most soldiers in Afghanistan in U.S. history.
I think there's been, in the past, legitimate criticism that the architecture, the legal architecture, around the use of drone strikes or other kinetic strikes wasn't as precise as it should have been, and there's no doubt that civilians were killed that shouldn't have been.
Now, Obama wasn't just the president who deployed the most troops into Afghanistan, he was also the president who killed the most people using drones in U.S. history. His predecessor, George W. Bush, launched 57 drone strikes during his presidency, while Obama launched 1,878 drone strikes during his 8 years, resulting in 800 civilian casualties, which resulted in many human rights organizations labeling him the deadliest U.S. president in history. Now, when it comes to the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, 我猜他们应该超不爽，对吧？
Consider Russia's annexation of Crimea and further aggression in eastern Ukraine. America has few economic interests in Ukraine. We recognize the deep and complex history between Russia and Ukraine, but we cannot stand by when the sovereignty and territorial integrity of a nation is flagrantly violated. If that happens without consequence in Ukraine, it could happen to any nation gathered here today. Imagine if instead Russia had engaged in true diplomacy and worked with Ukraine and the international community to ensure its interests were protected. That would be better for Ukraine, but also better for Russia.
and better for the world, which is why we continue to press for this crisis to be resolved.
Then in 2014, during Obama's first year of his second term, Russia moved on Ukraine and occupied Crimea. So let's see what actions this handsome as fuck US president who deployed 100,000 troops to Afghanistan will take after that.
And the US is sending $75 million worth of non-lethal equipment to Ukraine, including drones, radar, and Humvees. The move comes after the White House voiced concerns that pro-Russia rebels continue to break the terms of a ceasefire agreement in eastern Ukraine.
And then when Russia invaded Ukraine's Crimea, Obama decided to provide them with non-lethal aid in the term of Humvees, radios, and blankets, essentially helping the Ukrainians retreat and abandon their homes.
The Obama administration announced it will upgrade Taiwan's F-16 fighter fleet, but it will not sell Taiwan any new planes. Taiwan and its supporters in Congress are disappointed. And the sale has already irritated China, which sees Taiwan as a renegade province. But the Obama administration is hoping that this is a compromise everyone can live with.
And fun fact, Obama was also that US president who refused to sell Taiwan weapons for the longest period in US history. For 4 whole years. He only gave us niggas some parts and some screws and shit. And you need to remember, back then our good old friend Maicho was president at the time. I know, because I lived through that shit. And imagine if China decided to invade back then. Then what would Obama offer us? Maybe some life rafts or some life preservers or maybe some 中国国旗.
I've appointed a record number of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender public servants to positions across my administration. They are ambassadors and federal judges, special assistants, senior advisors from the Pentagon to the Labor Department. Every day their talent is put to work on behalf of the American people. Equality in the workplace is not only the right thing to do, it turns out to be good business. That's why a majority of Fortune 500 companies already have non-discrimination policies in place. It is not just about doing the right thing, it's also about attracting and retaining the best talent.
That was real gay, my nigga!
And then there's the notorious oh-so-heinous DEI policy. When Obama took office, he signed in 2 DEI policies. In 2011, he required all federal agencies to recruit LGBTQ members and mandated government oversight to review whether each department met these standards. Then in 2016, he expanded this policy to defense and intelligence agencies. From that point on, DEI became a benchmark in Hollywood, extending to American TV series, movies, games, and even social media, turning everything into a 代际多调落赛真人秀.
I'm proud that our friends and supporters are launching Organizing for Action, the next phase of our movement for change. Supporters like you will be the heart of this organization because for the past 6 years, you've done something so much bigger than elect a president. You've given ordinary people a place in our democratic process again. The relationships you made, the tools you built, and the lessons you've learned have already begun to change our politics. And in the coming years, they can change our country.
And then there's the OFA organization, Organizing for Action. This nonprofit organization compromised the DNC so bad that even Democrats called it out for its brazen acts of fuckery, like starting to discuss public issues through a racial and sexual-oriented lens and replacing national identity with identity politics. Just as Michelle Obama said, this changed America and divided it into 2.
After 2 years of unimaginable loss and suffering for Israeli families and the people of Gaza, we should all be encouraged and relieved that an end to the conflict is within sight, that those hostages still being held will be reunited with their families, and that vital aid can start reaching those inside Gaza whose lives have been shattered. More than that, though, it now falls on Israelis and Palestinians, with the support of the U.S. and the entire world community, to begin the hard task of rebuilding Gaza and to commit to a process that, by recognizing the common humanity and basic rights of both peoples, can achieve a lasting peace.
You sound like a gay.
Now, while Trump resolved the Gaza hostage crisis and seemingly was about to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the person who launched 7 military invasions, conducted over 1,800 drone strikes, and killed 800 civilians, divided America with DEI policies, and refused to sell weapons to us, lacked the courage to provide military aid to Ukraine, and wasn't even honest enough to keep his pre-election promise to withdraw troops. The Nobel Peace Prize poster fuckboy Barack Obama refused to even acknowledge Trump in his post, didn't give him props, and didn't even mention that orange nigga's name.
Say my name.
Donald J. Trump.
You're goddamn right.